It's 7:54. I'll call the formal meeting to order. Let's do a pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Let me do a roll call. I see the city attorney. I see Councilmember Rhodes. I see Councilmember Weatherby. Mayor Kiriakou is here, and I see Councilmember Amber Blair. I see the city administrator, and I believe, Paloma, you're still with us, right? Online?
Hello.
Okay. So, both Councilmember Domanski and Councilmember Grant are excused. All right. So, the first thing we do, so we've got some public hearings tonight, and let me kind of go through them. So there was a public hearing concerning a concept plan at 248 Tyranda. That's to be adjourned. They weren't ready to September 16th. Nick, do I need a motion to do that?
Yes.
Okay, so when the time comes, we'll do that,
correct.
right? Then there's also public hearing on the Fishkill Creek Development District. That also wasn't ready, and we'll ask to have it adjourned to the 16th because we don't have the materials ready yet. Now, there is a public hearing on on soil stabilization, and we will do that. If you have comments on that, please hold your remarks for that hearing. And then finally, there is a public hearing on those dimensional regulations that we just described, and we're also going to ask that be adjourned. No,
Yeah.
we're going to hold the hearing
And then at the conclusion,
adjourn.
correct.
Okay. So again, if you've got comments on either of those two, please wait. And what we'll do now is do general public comments, so you can go through anything other than those two public hearings coming up on any topic. And then the order of those who signed up, start with Thomas Wright. Come on up. Tell us who you are, where you live.
Good evening, Thomas Wright, 24 Grove Street, member Beacon Bicycle Coalition. I'm here to request a feasibility study for bike lanes on Fishkill Avenue between Blackburn and the Fishkill Town Line. I commute daily by bike between Beacon and my workplace in Newburgh. This commute exposes me to a high level of risk because there is no bike lane in these communities. Bike lanes are not merely about improving one person's commute. They provide well-documented systemic improvements to any community and for its visitors. In addition to reduced risk, there is improved quality of life, improved property values, improved sense of place, and improved health. And then there is the systemic improvement of reduction in greenhouse gas pollution that comes from people riding bikes more and driving cars less. Given the City Council's commitment to mitigating greenhouse gas pollution, it is only fitting that you would support the build-out of a network of bike lanes. As you know, transportation accounts for almost a third of greenhouse gas pollution in New York State. Hopefully you also know that the scoping plan, which resulted from the state's Climate Leadership and Community Protection Act, is explicit about the necessity to incorporate clean transportation into municipal level planning so that New York can meet its 2030 and 2050 climate action targets. Fishkill Avenue is the perfect opportunity to show that Beacon is aligned with this mandate. As the major corridor and defining feature of the area being studied by the Fishkill Avenue Concepts Committee, it has the ability to establish a pattern for development that is consistent with state climate goals, a pattern that incorporates the option of riding bikes safely within this neighborhood and two adjacent neighborhoods. Consider that the governor has called for 1,000 residential units at Downstate Correctional Facility. That's over 3,000 people. If Camp Beacon is developed at the same density, that's another 6,000 people. Add to this increased density at the Fishkill Avenue corridor, and you have a population increase of at least 10,000 people. Would you rather those new community members be forced to use their car to get around this future beacon? Or would you prefer that they have the option to use a bike to shop, work, and live? Bike lanes on Fishkill Avenue will make that future beacon possible. There seems to be some confusion about the future rail trail. One multi-use path does not make a bike network any more than the New York Thruway makes an automobile network. We will need a citywide network of bike lanes to safely take us to and from the rail trail, homes, schools, and shops. Finally, work is now underway for the first phase of Fishkill Avenue improvements. This work has come in under budget, and apparently the balance will be spent on sidewalks and
15 seconds.
curbs in the second phase of Blackburn to Fishkill Town Line. We respectfully request to halt any construction that will prevent bike lanes on this part of Fishkill Avenue. Thank you.
Thank you very much. James Burton.
Good evening. James Burton, 24 Duncan Street, Ward 4. I'm speaking towards Resolution 91 and Local Law number 6. So, as has already been discussed a lot this evening, finding housing at a reasonable price point in Beacon is becoming increasingly difficult, and that is becoming an increasing problem in terms of bringing in community members that are going to serve essential services in the city. And so from my own experience, I've lived in Beacon for 3 years. I've lived in 3 different properties over those 3 years. If the law is to be enacted with the 10 or more unit, only one of those units would have had the good cause conviction eviction notice would have applied for that. And as we know, landlords are not always private citizens, so making sure that this law covers as many locations as possible and reduces any administrative burden that prospective tenants might have is really crucial. And I think one thing that the City Council has made that is a clear top priority for it is creating a thriving community in Beacon. Good cause conviction is going to help smaller landlords to do so, because there are landlords markets are increasingly dominated by large landlords that often use underhanded techniques. They don't think the rules apply to them and often don't act in that way. Having a law like this would help reward landlords that are good to their tenants, that have good faith conversations and good faith agreements with their tenants. So yeah, I would strongly encourage the City Council to pass the law with the 345% and 1 or more units. Thank you.
Thank you. Teresa Kraft. And again, you're just going to talk about topics other than the 2 hearings.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
My name is Teresa Kraft. My address is on file. I don't tell everybody where I live, Chris. Thank you. Let's push to get the speed limit reduced and enforced on Main Street. Can't drive a car safely without cars passing us on a solid double line, making U-turns, but plenty of e-bikes around pushing 30+ miles an hour and not obeying any traffic laws. The council has also advocated for increased equitable investments in street safety infrastructure. Yet tonight, we're hearing police staffing and safety is an issue. Ideally, electronic devices can help ease the problem. Even flashing crosswalks in a few of the busiest blind spots on Main Street would make a huge impact on public safety. Install one at the intersection of Cross Street and one by Tioronda Avenue. As of today, we still only find one double-sided sign on one side of the street by Tioronda Avenue. Last week, I watched in joy, then in horror, as a family pedaled past me, cringing as the mom and dad led the pack and the small little ones pedaling along in their dust. Be careful out there, people. Yes, it's a bikeable city, but not on busy Main Street without barriers. Thank you.
Thank you. Jesse Van Amberg.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jessie Van Amberg. I'm a member of Beacon Climate Action Now. I live in Ward 4, and I just wanted to briefly talk about affordable and accessible housing tonight. I wanted to first thank the council after hearing the workshop session tonight for its revisions on the proposed good cause eviction law, which better reflects the needs of our community and, if passed, would help restore basic protections to many tenants in Beacon. Thank you in particular for listening to your constituents here in meetings in order to define small landlords as owning one rental unit so that we can ensure these protections for the broadest number of tenants under the constraints of the state framework. I am eager and hopeful that this will pass tonight given the public support for this version of the bill. But this is just the first step towards improving housing stability and affordability in our city. We still have serious issues in our community where many that is facing longtime residents and even newer transplants to move elsewhere. The city has some power to improve people's lives and protect the community we love so much. And given how swiftly the council responded to Good Cause for the second time, I hope there will soon be some other avenues explored to address the housing crisis in these chambers. Things like getting grants to hire a housing justice director, exploring social housing on city-owned lots, zoning changes to require more affordable units, and more. Beacon is a very special place, but it's more than just the restaurants and the shops and the art galleries that make it special. It's about the people and the community that live here. And if people have nowhere to go or nowhere affordable to go, they will leave, and they have been. I don't want that, and I can't imagine you do either. Now is the time to take robust action to help address this crisis, and the first step is to pass the proposed good law eviction with the latest updates tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Danny Noak?
My name is Danny Nost. I live on 50 Falconer Street. I want to speak in favor of passing our own version of the good cause opt-in. It sounds like 1 unit and 345% is on the table. So it would put us what other cities have passed. It sounds like nice numbers. It'd help keep our neighbors in their houses as rents keep going up and the city gets more unaffordable. So I'd ask you to pass it with those numbers. Thank you.
Thank you. Nicholas? Maureen? Oh, sorry. Yeah, Arthur, you were next on the list. Just wait a sec. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Good evening, Nicholas Moran, 28 South Street, Beacon, tenant, and member of the Mid-Hudson Valley chapter of the Democratic Social of America. I'm speaking also in favor of the amended law to lower the threshold to 1 unit and 345% of market rate. I think that the council member spoke earlier about raising it even further. I think that is a very wise thing to do, because you don't want to get too close to market rent, because then the rents will keep on, the landlord will try to go higher and higher. And I don't know how many of you would have thought that these rents that we have currently experiencing, that we'd ever gotten this like 5 years ago or even 10 years ago. Just the rents have increased exponentially, and it's very difficult. As we heard earlier, the city administrator speaking about having trouble with police officers living in their community, and I make a small fraction of that. So this is also not only 5 years, 10 years, 20 years too late, but this is actually the compromise. The state law that was proposed, I forget now how many years ago, the requirements of that law were even more strict about rent increases, et cetera. This will not keep people in their homes. This is only when people exercise their rights under the law, if it covers as many people as possible, then the courts will prevent them from being violently removed from their houses because of a landlord who doesn't follow the law. So I encourage you to pass this version as has been amended, and I really appreciate that the council took the public's input on making the changes. Thank you.
Thanks. Arthur, comments?
Good evening, everyone. Arthur Commons, 39 Rambat Avenue. Maybe I misheard, and maybe you can clarify it before I say anything more. If a landlord owns only 1 unit, is that unit exempt according to this law? Okay, because I think, am I right?
You are correct.
Okay,
That's pursuant to state law.
Okay, so what people were advocating for, I believe, in the public comment period, was that that unit would not be exempt. So no matter how many units the landlord owned, wouldn't matter. That it applies to virtually all units. That's what the community, I think, was advocating for when they spoke. So I'm kind of disappointed now that you've clarified that that's the case. So I think I want to advocate, therefore, for it to apply to all units, because there are plenty of units here in Beacon that are owned by one landlord and no more, and those people deserve the kind of protection that this law could afford. I know you all take what you do really seriously and work really hard, but I think you need to know that for a whole lot of people in Beacon, what the city council does each week is irrelevant to their lives. They do not see you all as being on their side. These kinds of laws give you an opportunity to say, we are on your side. But I hope when this passes, and I gather it's going to pass in some version, that what happened when we passed good cause eviction last time won't happen this time, which is that the vast majority of people knew nothing about the law because the city did virtually nothing to promote it. So I hope that this time the city will take seriously getting that public information out. And taking the next step, as was suggested before, you really need a housing advocate to stand for people so they don't feel all alone. And so I urge you again to amend this to make it cover everyone and to make sure that the public understands what their rights are. Thank you.
Thank you very much. James Boyd?
Mayor, just a point of information that the council is without authority under New York State law to exempt any, to include a one landlord owning unit into the good cause eviction law.
Yeah. In other words, you're saying the state law did not permit us to set that number at 0.
Correct.
Yes. Sure.
Hi there.
James.
My name's James. I live at 313 Hudson Avenue, Ward 2, where I'm a renter. Just adding my voice to those in support of the proposed good cause eviction law. Yeah, very grateful to the council for proposing the amended version of the bill that makes it the strongest possible version of the law. Yeah, I think it's extremely important that good cause protects as many tenants as possible by defining small landlord as one and raising the high rent exemption to $345. During my most recent lease renewal, the previous version of our local law was still in effect. My landlord, who I have a good relationship with, and says me and my roommates are wonderful tenants, said, Beacon rents are insane. I'm raising it the max amount that I can. Hope you can stay. And luckily we were able to because of that rent cap. And otherwise I think we would have had to leave Beacon most likely. And so urge you to pass this bill as amended. Thank you.
Thank you. Daniel Latona?
My name is Daniel Latona. I live in Poughkeepsie, but I work all around the region at For the Many. I applaud the local organizing of Mid-Hudson Valley DSA, Community Voices Heard, and BCAN that led us to this point. I was elated to see that the Good Cause Eviction Bill was edited to make it as strong as possible. Remember, Good Cause was already watered down in this year's state budget negotiations by greedy landlords and developers. Due to REBNY, the state law already carves out tenants that live in units built after 2009, or if it is owner-occupied with less than 11 units, rented from a co-op or condo, as part of an employment agreement, manufactured home, already rent-stabilized, subsidized, or public housing. So, given all these exemptions, there's absolutely no justifiable reason to water down Good Cause even further. The goal should be to protect as many Beacon tenants as possible. To do that, the City Council must opt in to the maximum protections allowed by the state. Pass a version of Good Cause that applies to eligible tenants who rent from a landlord who owns more than one rental unit in New York and pay less than 345% of fair market rent, also known as FMR. So far, every municipality that has passed Good Cause has done a one-unit threshold. That is the cities of Albany, Ithaca, Kingston, and Poughkeepsie. All except Kingston also passed 345% FMR. The city of Newburgh is currently considering 1 unit and 345% FMR. The 10-unit and 245% FMR originally considered would have been the weakest law in the state by far and left tenants vulnerable to the LLC loophole. Thank you for amending it. Now please pass Good Cause with 1 unit and 345% FMR tonight. Then send out a mailer to every eligible tenant so they know their new rights. Under Good Cause, tenants would have protection against arbitrary evictions so they don't have to fear retaliation for demanding repairs or organizing with their neighbors. They would have guaranteed lease renewals or the ability to stay in their home month to month without a lease, assuming they are paying their rent. They would have the ability to challenge rent hikes that are more than 10% or the Consumer Price Index plus 5%, whichever is lower, currently 8.45% upstate. Remember, Good Cause is most effective when tenants enforce their rights together as a group. If you are a tenant facing a rent hike, unfair eviction, or non-renewal, then it is likely that your neighbors are as well. Talk to your neighbors and organize a tenants union so you can negotiate against your landlord together. If it goes to court, then tell the judge you are good cause eligible. There's safety in numbers. When tenants band together, they have the power. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So that's everyone on the list. Anyone else in the physical audience want to make a comment who wasn't on the list? Sure, come on up. Tell us who you are, where you live.
Ruben Simmons, resident of Ward 4. I just wanted to make an announcement that this Saturday, August 24th, is the 9th annual back-to-school block party that will be held down at South Avenue Park. I hope that everyone can make it down there. Starting at 10:30 will be basketball games. We're theming it the Battle of the Bridge. So the Beacon Hoop All-Stars will play against the Hudson Valley Panthers that come from Newburgh. And the girls' game starting at 11:30 a.m. They'll be playing Zion Lions, which they also come from Newburgh. So that's where the Battle of the Bridge title came from. Starting at noon, the first 150 participants will receive a drawstring bag after they visit 9 vendors that will be in attendance. We have approximately 15 vendors that will be in attendance, and they're looking forward to giving out information and talking with residents of the community. And around 1 o'clock, we'll be starting our tie-dye. So hopefully all the young kids come out and try and get some colorful T-shirts. Our run is also up September. I Run Beacon is September 29th. So you guys, anyone wants to participate, it's a good community run. You don't have to be a runner, you could be a walker. There's some walkers in the room that have done it annually. So it's a run walk. And you can check out that information at runsignup.com. But all this information you can also find out at www.imbeacon.org. And lastly, I just want to say, if you guys it just sounds like you guys may be passing something tonight. If you are, if there's any pertinent information that you want to get out to the community, if there's time and you guys get anything printed up, we wouldn't mind sharing it at the block party event. So that I think communication is key, and that'll just be another avenue for you if there's information that needs to get out to the community. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Ruben. Anyone else in the physical public? All right. Ben, anyone online?
If you're on Zoom and you'd like to make a comment tonight, please use the raise hand option at the bottom of your screen. If you're joining us by phone, you will need to press *9. And lastly, if you're watching us on YouTube tonight, you will need to join us on the Zoom instead, which can be found on the city website. As of now, we have one hand raised on Zoom, and that is Tina. Tina, you have permission to speak whenever you're ready.
Hi, I just want to say that I'm glad that you're considering the strongest possible good cause eviction legislation. As Daniel Latona said before, this is the weakest possible law that the state could have considered. You know, you're all homeowners. I wonder how you'd feel if over a period of 3 years, your mortgage went up 30%. People live in constant fear. And the one thing that people didn't address sufficiently, as far as I'm concerned, is the fact that tenants throughout this community are intimidated by landlords. And although this will offer some protection, if there's not education and the city doesn't let people know their rights, they will continue to be intimidated. There are people on a regular basis who call Community Voices Heard because they have violations in their building and they don't even have a lease. And the landlord is constantly threatening to evict them, and they don't even know that they have any protections. And we've had people be driven out of this community by one death in the family, and they've had to move down south, or they've had to take a second job and are working at night. And it really is important for us to get in touch with the pulse of our community and who's been driven out and what we can do to save whatever vestige we have of diversity, of economic diversity, that will allow people to stay. And the only way that's going to happen is if the city seriously takes under consideration the need for someone, a housing representative, who can tell people their rights and inform people that they cannot just be driven out of their apartment. That's why it's so hard for people, because of the intimidation. Anyway, I'm glad you listened to the public. I just hope that you take it a step further, and I hope that tenants begin to learn what their rights are, not just that the law is passed. Thank you.
Thank you.
No further hands raised on Zoom.
Okay. We've got 2 public hearings. There's 4 on our list. So the first one, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn the public hearing on the concept plan for 248 Tyranda to September 16th.
Motion. Second.
So Molly and Dan. And again, we're just not ready. The applicant didn't have their act together.
Can you clarify, I don't know if you know yet, are we going to hear this or talk about it again at the workshop before the public hearing on the 16th? I assume it's on the 10th?
I would anticipate we will, yes.
Okay, great. I know the planning board had an extensive discussion of their
Yes.
own, so, great.
Before we move on, at the last meeting, I had mentioned that this applicant had come to the zoning board for a similar issue with the commercial property. I just want to confirm for everybody that that was the July and August 2021 zoning board meetings in which the applicant was asking for an area variance to delay the commercial portion of the project. You can watch it at those 2 meetings.
Yeah, could you just forward the material from that
Yes.
to the council?
I would also recommend everybody listen to the planning board meeting, the first 35 minutes, and then when they discuss, I think it was like an hour in, what we had asked them to with the concept plan. It was very informative.
It starts at 2 hours, 16 minutes into the meeting and lasts till 3 hours, 4 minutes into the meeting for those who do not feel they have the time or interest in listening to every item there, if you're interested in these 2 items in particular.
Cool.
And then also at the very end, they actually come back to it. Again, I think that's 3:06, 3 hours, 6 minutes into the meeting to 3 hours, 14 minutes into the meeting. So if you want to focus just on those items as well.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was very informative.
All right, so all in favor of adjourning to September 16th, the hearing on 248 concept plan, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone, Paloma?
Aye.
Okay, anyone opposed? Don't hear anyone. So the second one is also one I will look for a motion to adjourn. That's on the public hearing on the Fishkill Creek Development District.
Motion. Second.
So that was Pam and Dan, and that would be to adjourn to September 16th, same reason. Okay, all in favor of adjourning to September 16th, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Paloma?
Aye.
Okay. Then the third one, let's open the public hearing on that. So that one concerns soil stabilization. Nick, could you just give us a brief description of what that is, and then we'll receive any input?
I can. So this is a local law that would amend chapters 190 and 223 concerning soil stabilization. This was reviewed by the City Planning Board and the county, both of which are in favor of his memos in the agenda packet. And basically, it provides that all erosion control practices employed for soil stabilization should be made of natural fibers, hay, straw, as set forth in the law, unless otherwise approved by the Stormwater Management Officer or applicable municipal board, or otherwise required by DEC. In essence, it's getting rid of the plastics and the artificials from the soil practices for soil stabilization.
Okay. So it looks like on the list I've got one person that wants to speak on soil stabilization. That's Teresa Kraft.
Teresa Kraft. While the city is committed to maintaining clean stormwater by using natural materials to control erosion, we also need to better preserve the city's hills, ridges, and steep slopes to safeguard its natural beauty, regardless of any or no development plans in the near future. The updated law is intended to encourage sustained construction practices and ensure compliance with state regulations for the benefit of the community and the environment. I'm in favor of approving this revised local law. However, it is crucial to ensure that developers adhere to and follow the strictest of standards to protect our valuable waterways. Last few years, we observed construction on the creek where the work zone barriers were not properly maintained after small storms. With larger storms and weather patterns on the horizon, it's imperative that all hands are on deck. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see anyone else signed up. Anyone in the public audience want to make a comment on this particular local law? Ben, anyone in the virtual audience?
No hands raised on Zoom.
Okay, so I will look for a motion to close the public hearing on soil stabilization.
Motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Paloma?
Aye.
And Nick, that wouldn't prevent us from making small changes to it,
It
right?
would depend, as long as they're not material and changing the focus, correct?
Yeah, okay. And then finally, let's open the public hearing on dimensional regulations in the T district, the transition district. Nick, you gave us an explanation of what this was in the workshop. So on the assumption that everyone is here was listening to that, right? The main changes are dimensional, meaning what are the setbacks either from the lot line or from between the lot line and anything that's being built?
Correct. It's adjusting the dimensional requirements to be consistent with the use requirement of permitting townhomes within the T district.
Got it. And I have one person on the list here. It's Teresa Kraft.
Teresa Kraft, like your fellow council member suggested to you watch that meeting, the planning board meeting. I was at that meeting. It was very long, but very informative. Although I am deeply concerned with the new transition zones moving into residential neighborhoods, encroaching on residents and their quality of life, and the encroachment and impact it has on our historic properties and the natural view sheds, I am also concerned with the new transition zone over by Henry Street. Hopefully you all get that chance to watch that meeting. They are in the process of approving a project developing 4-unit attached townhomes. I'm not sure how that could pass through that zone. You're bringing in families with multiple cars, bicycles, and children, and it's almost the T-bone intersection at Veterans Place, where multiple commercial public buses stop, plus high-density traffic passing through the area, next to a forthcoming multi-million-dollar artist complex. With future plans of developing the parking lots into apartment buildings, I'm not sure those types of zones should be looked at as family, small home zones. I think you missed the mark there. Please look at the bigger picture. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Not seeing anyone else signed up. Anyone in the public audience want to make a remark on our dimensional regulations in our transition zone? Seeing none. Anyone online, Ben?
No, Mayor.
Okay. I'm going to look for a motion to adjourn this public hearing to September 16th?
September 3rd.
September 3rd.
Motion to adjourn till September 3rd.
Second?
So that was Molly and Dan, and we're not quite ready to go with this. You're going to make some changes, and
Consistent
September
with-
3rd is fine.
That's right, consistent with the workshop discussion.
Okay. All in favor of adjourning this public hearing to September 3rd? And again, we're adjourning it because there may be changes significant enough that we want the public input again.
Yeah. And is it possible, I think our next meeting, that meeting is a voting meeting, but could we talk about it before the public hearing? Is that an option?
We're going to have a brief workshop before that meeting because we have 3 weeks intervening, and I'm going to have a couple hires and a couple contracts.
Okay.
Yeah,
Great.
so we had thought maybe we do a half-hour workshop at the beginning of the meeting.
Great.
All right. So all in favor of adjourning this particular public hearing to September 3rd, say aye.
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 Paloma?
Aye.
Okay. That takes care of that. Let's do reports. Why don't we start with Paloma, and then we'll go to Molly and then around.
Sure. I would reiterate Ruben's remarks to please check out the I Am Beacon block party. It's one of, back to school block party. It's one of the great community events that we have here in Beacon. And otherwise, I'll just add that my next open office hours will be Sunday, September 8th, from 4 to 6 p.m. at Memorial Park.
Okay.
Great. Thanks, Paloma. I want to thank all the people who came out to share their thoughts about Good Cause and all the people who reached out to me personally, tenants, landlords, and advocates. I hope that the version of the bill that we are likely to vote on tonight is something that people feel generally good about. I also want to say that I got my water meter letter and I scheduled my meeting, so just a public service announcement that if you got your letter, to please go ahead and schedule. This is the time to invite people to come in to your your home to update your water meter so that it can be read by our new snazzy system that will be launching any month now, I'm sure. And then lastly, I've also had some people reach out to me about concerns they have with things to do with their building. And so sort of another public service announcement that you can always contact our building department if you have any concerns, want to know what the issue is, and feel free to reach out to any of your city council members as well. We're happy to advocate for you as well. And also there might be larger trends that we can help identify and work with the city on that as well. So I appreciate any time someone reaches out kind of wanting more support. And with that, I'll pass it to Pam.
Thank you. Not being here last meeting, I just wanted to thank the Veterans Banner Committee that we had met with a few weeks ago. It was just very enlightening to see how dedicated they are to the project, and we should all be thankful for all the work that they're doing. I wanted to add the crosswalk at Fishkill Avenue and Mill Street, the thing that goes in the middle of it to tell people it's a crosswalk. I don't know if it's damaged, but it's like over on the side, laying over. It looks like it might be damaged. And then also I was wondering, I am wondering about a feasibility study for bike lanes on Fishkill Avenue, and I think it would be a good idea if we can try to get that done, especially with the Fishkill Avenue Concept Committee. And then also, if the Fishkill Avenue Concept Committee are ready to even just present their initial findings. I did participate late, but I did participate in the meeting that they had, and they really are moving forward with a lot of the different, what could be done with the road, and bikes keep coming up, and bikes are really a great opportunity for Beacon because low emissions, no emissions, and as long as people are safe and we have the lanes, Beacon could be the most amazing bike city around. That's all I have. Thank you.
All right, two things for me. I just want to make everybody aware that the Howland Public Library is closed today and through the end of the week because they're painting inside. And I believe the library will reopen on Saturday, the 24th. The other thing I wanted to share is that we have a bit of a change to our polling sites this year for the November election. So firstly, early voting begins early October 26th this year, and the nearest location is still Fishkill Town Hall on 52, like it always has been since this started. But on election day itself, there will be 3 polling places at South Avenue, at Rombout Middle School, and at the Memorial Building, and all voters in Beacon can use all 3 locations to vote. So it's not there's a Ward 4 site and a Ward 1 site. Everybody can go to all 3 locations. Thank you.
Wow. That's a significant change. That's the right church, wrong pew problem, or in fact, you would walk into the building and if you went to the wrong table, that was a problem.
Yeah.
So you're saying you go to any of our booths, polling areas.
That's right.
And the entire voter roll is there, so
That's
you can
right.
vote at any location.
It looks like they did that for the villages and the cities.
Wow.
Or for the cities, for the cities.
Yeah, that's a really nice change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. I only got a couple of things. So I attended a presentation on bikes and women in history last week, and it was really cool. I was very impressed. It was pretty sparsely attended. My wife and my daughter and I were close to half the audience, but it was still very cool. The Concept Committee on Route 52 is charged with looking at all the issues, including bike lanes. There is not need for a separate work. That's what they've been charged to do, so let them do their work. I will note that I spent time personally examining the rights-of-way and physically kind of going to some sites over not this weekend but the prior one, and I could identify an incredibly easy access on 3 or 4 or 5 different points between Main Street, Memorial Park, and others on the west side and also on the east side. So again, I think the Concept Committee is the right group to do this. I'm not sure that we need to be trying to do something that they're doing. That's why we gave them that task. And I would just politely suggest that we wait and see what they have to say. That's all I've got. City Administrator?
We are at the peak of projects, as you probably see by all the cones all over the town. I want to thank everyone for their patience as we undertake one of the largest groups of capital projects we've done in many years. Our firehouse is about 2 months from done, and you're going to be seeing a lot of work on Route 9D the next couple weeks. We're doing the sewage and water hookups in the road. Molly had mentioned the water meter project. We have now installed more than 500 meters with another almost 400 appointments. We have 3,600 households to go. So again, we're just beginning and they're getting rolling. The We Play area of Memorial Park, we have struggled with the contractor who has basically been let go at this point, and we have gone around directly to the suppliers to finish, and we will be having an accounting of that with the contractor that basically left us stranded on that project. West Main Pump Station is going ahead, ADA curb ramps at 33 intersection locations. The stairs at City Hall are going to be done, and Fishkill Teller Avenue, the sidewalks are being done. So again, thank you for your patience. I know there's a lot going on in the city right now. Thank you, Mayor.
All right. Okay, let's work on our local laws and resolutions. So the first one is a resolution appointing George White to the position of police dispatcher. Can I get a motion in a second?
Motion.
Second.
Pam and Molly. Chris, anything you would add that the police chief did not already do?
No, I would just add, since the chief is no longer with us, that George is a graduate of the University of New Haven with a BA in criminal justice. He is also part of the American Criminal Justice Association and had worked with the Putnam County Sheriff's Office, and we're anxious to welcome him to our staff. He will be filling in as a civilian dispatch. He will be our next civilian dispatcher, basically replacing Isabella, who we promoted to police officer.
Any further comments? All right, so all in favor of appointing George White to the position of police dispatcher, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Paloma?
Aye.
All right. So the next one is we're going to authorize the city administrator, and this is to execute a memorandum of agreement with the PBA, the Patrolmen's Benevolent Association. Benevolent, I like that one. It's sort of like malevolent. Can I get a motion in a second?
Motion.
Second.
So that was Molly and Pam, and I promised to say benevolent several times in a row during this conversation. Chris, would you add anything that, in addition to our discussion earlier?
No, I would just sum up that this is a wage adjustment to try to make us more competitive with the other surrounding departments who we're competing for staff with. And I will reiterate again, you have a great police department, and I think we need to send a message to them that they're valued, and we don't want them to go to other locations because we're not paying enough.
So I would just add a couple of things. One, I want to congratulate our ability to do collective bargaining agreements at exactly the right moment to get the best benefit in terms of the lowest increases. But the reality is that inflation followed that, and we inevitably have to catch up. So I think that this is a necessary one. I appreciate the city administrator's remarks on the quality of who we've been able to hire and the ability to attract. Now we want to be able to keep and also to be competitive to attract some more. Oh, and I do want to add, and I'll say it again, I believe we can cover this. We will have to be careful in the next several budgets. You will see the mayor's budget close to cap, but it will not exceed cap, and we'll figure out how to make this work. And we're going to have to do this for all three of our collective bargaining agreements to some degree.
Vote.
Okay.
Vote.
Anything else?
Vote.
All right. So all in favor of authorizing the city administrator to execute an agreement For the Patrolmen's Benevolent Association, say aye.
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 Paloma?
Aye.
All right, thank you all. This one is also authorizing the city administrator, and this is to execute an agreement with Sunup Construction. As you know, Sunup Construction won the lowest responsible bid for the Washington Avenue Box Culvert Wing Wall Replacement Project. Can I get a motion and a second?
Motion. Second.
Pam and Dan. And do you need me to say those words again? Or is
I
that
do,
okay?
actually.
Chris, would you add anything?
No.
Have you figured out which direction the 10 by 5 of the culvert runs?
No.
All right. Any other comments? All right, just to keep Molly happy, all those in favor of authorizing the city administrator to execute an agreement with Sunup Construction for the Washington Avenue Box Culvert Wing Wall Replacement Project, say aye.
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 Paloma?
Aye.
Very good, thank
And
you.
who is the motion and the second on that, please?
It was
Pam and Dan.
and Dan.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We're both
Okay.
big fans of box culvert wing walls.
Well, you know, there's a lot of us out there, Dan. We really like our box culverts.
Especially the wing walls.
The wing walls are incredible.
Are you
Don't
calling
box us
someone
in.
a wing wall? Yeah. All right, sorry, let's keep going. We're mostly there, so we're getting there. This one is a resolution adopting the City of Beacon Government Operations Climate Action Plan. Can I get a motion and a second to do that?
Motion.
Second.
So Molly and Dan. Ben, would you describe briefly what we're doing here?
Yes, I'd be happy to. As many of you know, last week, our Climate Smart Coordinator and I, along with Mary Lambert, spoke to you about a plan that we've been working on over the course of the last many months, following an inventory that we did last year and presented to you early this year. This essentially recommends tangible things that we can hopefully look to as a roadmap over the next 5 years or so, between now and 2030, to help meet our climate emission goals. So this is essentially a roadmap tool that the city can use as we're making decisions over the next handful of years. What you're considering tonight is adopting it formally, which doesn't change anything about the nature of the report. It's still not legally binding as to any particular action item, but adopting it allows us to get credit for all the work that Faye and I put in for it. So as part of the climate points that we get as a result of doing this and taking on this endeavor over the past year and change, adopting it after presenting to you is kind of the final step. So we'd appreciate you considering it. Thank you.
And I would just say these climate points that we get are translating into real money. We've been awarded $175,000 towards the installation that we're going to do of photovoltaic cells on the highway garage, and we just put in another grant for 6 electric vehicles, which would more than double our electric vehicle
All right.
fleet, along with another charging station for City Hall.
That's great.
Right, and this is all NYSERDA
It's
grants?
routed through NYSERDA,
And
yes.
the whole point of the program was NYSERDA was trying to encourage communities to move on the climate area, and by being at the leading edge, we get access to these grant monies before others.
Yes.
Which is great.
And then it's a reinforcing loop, so that the more we do, the more we get. It speeds up the number of points we get.
And then would you just pass along to Faye our thanks? Because
Absolutely. I have
Yeah,
to
and-
say, Faye Leone did an amazing job, as did Ben Swanson.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Ben. All right. All those in favor of adopting the 2021 to 2030 City of Beacon Government Operations Climate Action Plan, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Paloma?
Aye.
All right, thank you all. Next one is a local law concerning the prohibition of eviction without good cause. Can I get a motion and a second?
Motion.
Second.
Pam and Dan. Nick, would you describe or add anything from our earlier discussion?
No, it's just adopts the law as authorized by New York State with 2 local options, setting the landlord exemption as 1. So if you own 1 or more one unit, you are exempt, and setting the fair market rent for the high rent exemption at 345% of the fair market value for Dutchess County.
All right. And I just
Nick,
want to,
sorry.
go ahead.
Nick, I had a clarifying question on one of the state exemptions, which is an owner-occupied building of 10 units or more. I know that we discussed this a few years ago when we were working on a different version of the law. Can you clarify the definition of owner-occupied in this context?
So I believe the state law has a specific definition. I don't recall, as I don't have it in front of me, but in essence, owner-occupied would be, subject to the complete definition of the state law, the owner of the unit on the deed of the property or who has an interest in it. So if it's an LLC, they have an interest, and they reside there, and it is their primary residence.
So in a 10-unit building, they would occupy 1 unit in the 10-unit building?
That is correct, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
And an ADU is only owner occupied if the owner lives in the ADU.
Correct,
Okay.
yes, that's right.
Right, but, and let me ask again, just to be clear, your legal opinion is the state, by giving us room to set a couple of parameters, was not trying to give us the opportunity to eliminate any exclusions.
Correct.
So
Yes.
you would say that if we set the small landlord at 0, we would be subject to suit and probably lose, at
Correct.
least in your legal opinion.
Yes.
And then similarly, if we set too high a percentage and it included everyone and excluded no one, we would similarly be subject to saying we're not following what the state is.
That is our opinion, yes.
Okay.
To ask a clarifying ADU question, what if the in-law unit is in your home where you live, like it's a basement apartment? Is that clear?
Well, then I think it's
It's
tenant
owner-occupied building?
yes.
Okay, right. So only if the ADU is detached. That might be something that the
So again,
courts need to clarify, but
I've not focused on this aspect of the law. I don't do landlord-tenant laws. I've not looked fully into the good cause, but my belief is that when they describe owner-occupied, it may be the entire property. So if you have a garage that is separate from the main dwelling unit,
that
it
might
may-
count as,
it
because
might
it's the
count.
property.
Yes.
Okay, so for those who, in that situation, it might behoove them to talk to a lawyer for their own clarification
Correct,
about the
yes.
law, the state law.
Although, if you own your own home and it happens to have a detached ADU, that would still only count as 1.
True, if that's all you own, yes.
Right,
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Comments? All right, so I just got a couple. First, I just want to thank the council for relying on legal opinion of our professional law firm. The last round of this, I'm sure many of you recall, there were those who considered themselves legal experts, and I'm not talking about others who, spoke. I'm talking about the lawyers who, were out there insisting they knew the law. And quite honestly, I should have made bets with them, because if I bet enough money, none of them would have taken that position. I am pleased that we're kind of following advice of counsel and doing this in a way that precludes legal liability. So I appreciate that. Second, I know that we don't have economic experts here, and we have to make some choices, and I think we just make them. But ideally, we would want data on, for instance, how many of the evictions actually entail something that good cause would preclude. I think that's a very small number. My assumption is that 90% plus of the evictions are rent-related or, bad tenant behavior or whatever, all of which are good causes for eviction. So I believe this will affect a small percentage. I'm just trying to be honest as to what we're doing here. While I think that may be important, that's what we should just realize, that that's what we're doing. I also take some objection to dividing the world into good people and bad people and assuming that all landlords are greedy and that all tenants require protection. I think the reality that we're dealing with here is there is someone who's renting and someone who is, someone who's a landlord and someone who is a tenant. For the rents to be where they are isn't the cause of one side or the other. It's the nature of the market. And as our governor pointed out, we're 800,000 units short of housing, which has caused this crisis. Probably in the New York metro area, just in the New York section of the metro area, is probably 600,000 short. If we would have built 1 million units in the last 5 years, rents would be plummeting. And we could say, well, it's just the stupid landlords as opposed to the greedy ones. I don't care to call anyone by names, right? The real issue here is that housing shortage, and what we do to help solve that will be meaningful. My ideal to have solved this problem, and I wrote to my elected officials, including the governor, was to say that housing vouchers are by far the best approach here. They would be means tested, and that means those who could not afford the rent would get some vouchers, and those who are bidding up rent prices, because we have many people coming to Beacon because we're popular and they can pay more. That doesn't make them bad, right? But they are the ones helping to bid up the prices, that they would not receive vouchers. That would be the best approach. However, that's not what's before us. What's before us is the good cause eviction law with a couple of exceptions. I believe that we've chosen reasonable items for those. I believe there will also be some unintended consequences. I think the unintended consequence of including small landlords in this legislation will be that small landlords will start to behave like large landlords. Large landlords are the ones who, I'm sure statistically you could demonstrate, are the ones that raise the rents the most, and that the ones who have the lowest rents are in fact the small landlords. One, they don't know better. Two, they actually know who their tenants are. And three, they're just trying to usually make their retirement work, and they're not trying to do more than that. I think the unintended consequences, they will behave like large landlords, do the maximum rent increases. I'm not sure that will get us what we want. The counter argument is that, and I've heard this, that, well, why should the protection for a tenant vary based on the number of units that the landlord has? I think that's a fair argument. And I think there's a trade-off there. And then finally, on the issue of the 245 or 345%, again, I just don't see a particular reason to provide protections to those who pay that much and who are the ones that have been on the renter side driving up the rents. Not to say that the landlords aren't doing that as well. So having said all that, I think the final unintended consequence is that I think that many landlords view lease expiration as an opportunity without having to go to court just to say, this is enough, I've had some issues with your neighbors, whatever it happens to be. And I think the unintended consequence is going to be that if a landlord is looking to bring in a tenant, they're going to make sure that that tenant is by far the best tenant that they could have. If there's any questions about that tenant in terms of their credit record, their ability to pay, whether they might cause noise or other issues, they're just going to say no. And I think the ones that I personally want to protect are those who I believe will be the unintended consequence and will lose out. I believe that landlords will now go for the best tenant that they can find and will not take any chances, and I find that sad. All that said, I'm willing to vote for this because this is the bill in front of us. While I would prefer it to be done in other ways, this is good enough. So I just wanted to speak my piece. Other comments?
I am interested in following up on the idea from several folks that we might be able to do more to share information about this law this time around. And I'm curious if there's interest from others on the council or the administration to be able to do that.
Okay. Any other comments before we vote? All right. So, all in favor of adopting Local Law 6 concerning the prohibition of eviction without good cause, say aye.
Aye.
Any, Paloma?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Thank you all. The next one is the resolution concerning soil stabilization. Are we going to not take that up? No.
Yes, yes, it is scheduled to be taken up.
Okay.
But Mayor, we might want to, I got some late information that we might be, I'd like another week and to get additional information because I understand that Scenic Hudson uses a product that may have just a small amount of non-biodegradable, and actually because of its local content as opposed to something that's shipped around the world, we actually might want to just tweak this slightly. Instead of saying 100% biodegradable, we might want to say, predominantly. But I'd like to vet it out we may come back and do the same law, but I didn't get that information till like a few minutes
There's no
before.
rush on.
Yeah.
So I would ask if we could table it.
So can I get a motion to table this to
Till September 3rd. Yeah, motion to table until September 3rd.
That
Second.
would be plenty of time.
Was that the motion?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Paloma?
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can I just take a second to thank Chris for putting this on the agenda? This came out of a conversation we had about photographs that were sent in by a constituent at Ward 4, and who was concerned about the creek, and Chris moved it around to a local law very quickly. So
And
thank
I
you.
just want to make sure we measure twice and cut once.
It's the way to go.
Well, one thing that the planning board had mentioned too, while they were in favor of this, they were talking about, the plastic fencing that people put up, and that is typically just breaks apart and is just left there. So I don't know if that's anything.
Well, they're not allowed to leave sediment fence there, so this would only pertain to products that are left permanently. And if you do see that, we get calls and we make them go and remove all of that.
Okay, that was one thing that they.
This is really about kind of mesh products that are left in place, like when you're trying to hold an embankment that's really vulnerable.
And then
So I just want to
because-
make sure that there isn't a product that has a very small content of something that's non-biodegradable, but overall is much more environmental. So
Did we vote?
You have
No.
minute-
So
you know
all
to
of
vote.
those in favor of tabling the soil stabilization
To September 3rd.
to September 3rd, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Paloma?
Aye,
All
though I
right.
think we did take that
yeah, I
vote
think
already.
you did take that
Oh,
vote.
okay.
Now
Well, we
you
did it twice.
Now you got minutes
All right.
or
Well-
public comment.
Now we have the approval of minutes of August 5th. I will look for a motion in a second.
Motion.
Molly? I'll second them. So Kiriakou second them. Any comments or changes or additions?
I sent in my one comment, and then I'm just noticing, Ben, I think that if you click on the link in the updated version, that I think because it has a period at the end, it's like including that, and so it's not working. So I don't know if there's a way to just adjust it slightly so someone clicks on that link, it goes to our page. Just if someone happens to use that to watch our videos. But otherwise, I have no other comments that I didn't already submit and weren't already updated.
And
All
thanks
right.
for the feedback.
Of course, I'm getting better at not necessarily needing to do that live.
Okay.
All in favor of approving the minutes of August 5th, say aye.
Aye.
Paloma?
Aye.
Thank you. All right, this is the second opportunity for public comment. In the physical audience, there was no one here who hasn't already spoken. In the first opportunity.
No one's online.
And is there anyone online? Chris tells me there is not. So I will announce the next meeting, which will be on September 3rd at 7.
Yeah, so I would just say expect a workshop from maybe 7 to 7:30 and then a voting meeting.
So should we notice the meeting starting at 7:30?
Yeah, I would.
So would that be all right? I'm going to announce that the next meeting will be Monday, Tuesday, September 3rd, beginning at 7:30, with the expectation that we do a brief workshop before then, starting at 7.
Because I know I have at least one hire, and I've got a couple minor things that might be coming.
And I want to know the results of this soil stabilization update that
Yes,
you're going to look
I'm
into.
I'm on edge now that I got
It's very
new
unstable.
information.
I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion. Second.
So Pam and Dan, any final comments from anyone? All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Paloma?
Aye.
Thank you all so much. Good night.
Good night.
Yes, so we